But I think there's also a fundamental, like, I don't trust you.
Yeah.
And I think that's really dangerous.
We explicitly told our staff to like get out of the office at 5. Okay.
And I think
we were not setting an expectation.
Well, we could have done both. Like, so you could say we respect your personal time so much. And we did that. We were like, stop working at 5 o'clock. I would go around to people's desks. I would close laptop lids. Yeah. I would say, get out of here. I'd call people on Zoom if they were still on Zoom, be like, what are you doing here?
Let's get it rolling. Big ideas, money folding, hustle smart, dream so wide. Turn that grind into a joyride.
You're a founder.
Nope.
The startup.
I was.
You ever been one?
Yeah, a couple of years ago now. Yeah.
So what I want to talk about is vacations.
Love them.
Hate them.
Why? They're amazing. Why would you hate vacation?
Because
for you or for employees?
For you, for the founder.
For you, the founder.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good question because I want to have this confrontation with you because it's going to be a confrontation.
Okay. Is there a fight involved? Like, can I choose a weapon?
All right. Maybe we need to give the background of the vacation history of the two of us and explain that to the audience first.
It's not favorable.
Well, why don't you explain?
Okay. So Chris never went on vacation, like period. For a lot of reasons, I would say, and we can get into this, but I would say there was a lot of fear there that something would go wrong and you'd be on vacation and something would go wrong and you'd have to deal with it. You were escalated support. We can talk about I actually have a ton of thoughts on this. You're not going to like them. Then on the flip side, I went on a vacation probably every 4 months.
I was going to say like 4 times a year, pretty much.
Every 3 months?
Yeah, you definitely did a Christmas
my wife's
vacation.
Very
you did a
for
spring vacation. You had a summer vacation. You definitely did something like in the fall as well.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I had some good vacations.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, okay, nature of the job though too, like sales versus
coding,
most specifically
operations.
Tech support
is
the thing that really prevented you from doing vacations.
Right.
If it was just building new code, you could have gone on vacation.
So so your history of vacation was you were probably taking a 1 or 2 week vacation, maybe like 3 to 4 times a year.
I didn't like more than 2 weeks. I would probably do 2 weeks like once.
Right.
And then I would do a couple of small ones. Yeah.
Like 1 week vacation.
I think probably all in, I'd be like 4 weeks of vacation a year.
Okay. So basically, I want to put out there is this a myth? Okay. Founders don't take vacations ever. Is that a business myth?
It is because I think the best founders take vacations.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
So, is that?
I'm not taking a shot at you. Okay, can I tell you why I think that?
All right. Yeah.
It's probably going to dovetail into some of your points.
Okay.
I think vacation, being able to go on a vacation is a test of how well you've built your business model, how well you've scaled your role in that business, and basically how dependent the business is on you.
Right.
So I'm going to do a really quick diagnosis, and we can go deeper into this. But so you felt, and I think actually accurately, that you couldn't go on a vacation. Because what would happen inevitably is you would go on vacation, you'd go somewhere, you would get a support call, it would be of critical urgency, and you'd be out of pocket. Right. It would be really, really hard. Or even if you were on an aircraft, for example, and you would be terrified. Because no matter how long the flight was, because it would be like 3 hours long, you'd be like, I got to make sure. And this didn't really change even when we added staff who I think were pretty competent. Yeah. You know, like Austin, like our senior developer was like our first coder after you was great. Yeah. Now, mind you, there's a ramp up period. He couldn't have done it in the early days, but I do think he could have done it. Right. But I think what a couple of things here. One is you created accidentally a dependency. You created a dependency that you had to handle the most serious customer support stuff. Why? Because ultimately the buck stops with you. You were going to get yelled at if something broke. You were going to face that customer wrath, and you didn't want that. Cool. Yeah. Get that. Second, life-saving software. Our software was in the business of helping inform people in an emergency or in cases like directly involved in saving a life.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty intense. That's a burden. Third thing, we never created adequate systems for escalation of customer support and for the sort of like burden sharing of escalated customer support. We learned about this after we were acquired. Right. Tools that did this a lot better, where it wasn't just going to be Chris that was on call. So it's very common in software, just talking to the audience, it's very common in software that you will have a senior developer or probably a couple that are available 24/7, and they do this in shifts. Okay. So, this week it's this person. So what does this mean? You cannot go to the club and get blackout drunk because you are on call. And by the way, this is common in a lot of advanced professions. Doctors are on call. Like, it's not unusual. So, so these people have to be, kind of put together for a week. And if something comes through from the customer support team, because customer support would also have somebody so they're like the first level support, then that escalated support would be the developer, and there'd probably be somebody beyond that. And that's probably when you get to your CTO level of escalation, like very serious mission critical issue. Yeah. We just didn't do that. You were escalated customer support and you were level 2 support. You didn't feel comfortable to let the staff take on the development staff to take on those customer support issues.
That is accurate.
Yeah. But you put yourself in a box. So then you couldn't do it. You couldn't give it up.
I also didn't think it was very fair to put them in that position.
Why? You're paying them, you bonus them, they have responsibilities. We told them it might happen someday. Job description.
You're
a nice guy.
Well,
that's the problem.
I think part of it too.
If you weren't such a nice guy, if you were a real bastard, it'd be a lot easier, this whole thing.
I liked our staff. I still like our staff.
I like people.
Yeah.
It's not being mean to them.
I did have an issue with, I didn't want to inflict that on them because.
What was the fear there? That they would quit?
Yeah, maybe that it was too much. Our staff were also pretty young. They were right out of school. There's a lot of responsibility when you've only been working for a year or two. Which can be a bit scary.
This persisted for many years. This wasn't. Austin would have been at some point 5 years with us.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, look, I'm just telling you the way it is.
Yeah.
I'm just, right or wrong or whatever. But that was my thinking on it, was that I didn't think it was fair to do it to them. Okay. I think that I had a very overall view of our systems to be able to support it. So I could pretty much fix anything. And whereas our staff were a little bit more siloed, they knew their piece.
So that's, I would say that's a second dependency.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
There was the piece of it was really, so if somebody called for support after hours, our phone system would actually say, we're currently closed. We do have emergency support. If it's a emergency situation, press 1. If it's a non-emergency situation, press 2. So pressing 1 went to a call center that would actually answer the call
and call you.
So they immediately got to speak to a person.
Yep.
Okay. That person would then take the name and number of the person that called.
I
would call back.
How this changes the AI. Eh?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So that would not exist now because AI would do it. But the alternative was it would send them to a voicemail box where they would leave a message.
Terrible idea. Terrible idea.
So, no. The
for
non-emergency.
Yeah.
So, but for the emergency stuff, it would eventually get to me, and they always got to talk to like a real human that was just an answering service that took down the information, and that gave me just a little bit of a break that I could. I would get a text message actually with the details of the call.
I would do it sometimes. I would be CC'd, or I would sometimes do them actually, very rarely.
So I would research what is actually going on, and then I would call them. So when they picked up the phone, I already knew what was going on, and a lot of times I had a resolution already. So I was just bringing in good news, and that was how I protected myself from getting potentially yelled at. That something went wrong, and it was very rare that it happened. It might have happened, I don't know, once every 2 months or something.
Oh, no, way less than that. I think like 3 times a year. We get an after hours one. So you were really worried about
also part of it. Okay. Is that, all right, I'm going to tell an employee, hey, this weekend, you can't really go out and hang out with your friends because
they can. They just can't get blackout drunk. They can even have a beer or two.
Yeah.
Or whatever they want to do.
You can see how anxious I am even just talking about this. So I was obviously
visibly uncomfortable.
I know. Right? I can't sit straight because.
Can we zoom in on him? Graham, zoom in on him really quick. Can we just we need
Please
to
don't do that.
Eggs.
Please don't do that. Anyways,
more eggs. Damn you.
So the reality, so let's get back to the
no, I like this.
From me.
Hang on. Can I go to me going on vacation though?
Okay.
So here's agreed. Intensity different, urgency different, importance different.
Okay.
For customer service,
right?
In that nature, something breaking with life-saving software is really important.
So this was the reason, though. Yeah, getting back to the topic of the episode is that's why I didn't like going on vacation.
Correct.
Or I always did vacations that were very close to laptop, close
Or you
to
had some form.
no long flights, no out of communication, no,
Well,
that kind of stuff.
Okay, hang on. I have a few thoughts. The other thing I'll just say is that for me, so I managed 2 teams at like my peak busyness. The operations team, which was deploying the mobile applications, and the sales team. Sales team, pretty easy. Hey guys, if there's any big demo that comes up, push it to when I'm back. And otherwise, I trust you to be able to handle about 99% of demos. It was very rare that there was something that needed to be demoed that like I absolutely had to be on it.
Yeah.
I would come in on big deals because I wanted to show that we were serious and that kind of stuff. Like, Phil Knight kind of move for, Nike whenever it was a big deal. And then I do demos myself too, because I want to hear from a customer. I want to understand the market, what's going on. Then on the implementation side, it was like, okay, guys, keep doing your work without me. This person will be in charge while I'm gone. If you need escalations, work through them. And then if it's like a technical issue, just go through the normal channels back to customer support. Yeah. So it was like very easy, but there was like systematized process. We had like documentation. We had a way of doing it. So I would say that like, that's why for me, I felt less stressed about it. The other thing I want to put on your radar was that I would argue that some of this is because you are older. Okay. You have had jobs before. You had bosses that because you were making software for like, it was kind of a weird relationship thing, but you were making software for a boss, and that boss looked down on people going on vacation. It was an old school mentality. It still exists. Hey, send us a message if your boss doesn't like it when you go on vacation. And I think you felt that you were also shirking responsibility. Right. I don't think it's just about operations. Yeah. I think you felt like you were getting behind. You were leaving something behind. You were letting people down. You were doing that. Or in some cases, your boss was just being a jerk and guilting you about you going away. Yeah. So I think that conflated with, like, because think about it. When you had Century File, you also wouldn't go on vacations. Remember when we went to Europe years and years ago? You had that little shitty Wi-Fi
dongle thing
that barely worked.
Yeah.
And we're ripping on a train somewhere. And you're like trying to answer support. But that wasn't life-saving software.
Yeah, I know.
That was document management.
Yeah.
Come on. You know? But I think there's a guilt complex there.
Yeah. Okay. So
let's get Graham on this. Graham, do you think
so
you've read the best. Now try the rest. Wait, who wrote this? Check out Startup Different on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle.
So the podcast viewer listener has heard kind of like both sides of the coin here.
And they agree with me.
Psycho never going to take a vacation, and hey, pretty reasonable. Take a few vacations, recharge the batteries, be productive, and have it. So I wanted to try and figure out whether it was a myth that founders don't take vacations ever. And the reality is it's actually partially true. Can I throw some stats at you?
Hit me.
All right. So 48% of entrepreneurs experience feelings of burnout. Have you ever feeling burned out?
Totally.
Okay. 55% of startup founders have delayed vacations or time off due to workload increasing burnout risk. Here's an HBR one.
You can't go on vacation whenever, but okay.
HBR suggests that about 70% of CEOs work during their vacations.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I agree.
Okay.
Sorry, this is confusing. I agree. Okay, hang on. So this isn't totally fair. You're characterizing it a little bit differently. Yeah. So burnout, 48% is less than half, first off. So I'm just going to say that. So more than half go on vacations. Second is that burnout is silent like debt. It's like a different form of debt, like technical debt, but for creativity, for moving your business forward. It's a real issue.
Right.
And I do agree that you need time away to recharge those batteries and be better at your own job. You will be further ahead.
So here's an interesting one. Okay. So in startups, most employees put in about 50 to 60 hours per week. But did you know that most founders put in 60 to 100 hours per week on average?
On average?
Yeah. Founders are...
So that's a huge range. That's almost 100%. But
it is a huge range. Yeah. Okay.
But still like more than the average employee.
Well, and here another stat, 40% of startup founders work more than 60 hours per week. Okay. So like there's a real risk of burnout. Okay. Yeah. And so, and 32% of entrepreneurs work more than 70 hours per week. So huge burnout risk. And I got to think that I'm in that category. That I probably didn't realize it at the time because it was just life, but I think I was pretty burnt out. Especially by the end. I don't think that
I was burnt out by the end too, and I wasn't taking the same vacations as everybody else as I was before.
Yeah,
but Okay, well, a couple of things. Like one is like there's a time and a place for vacation. You kind of mentioned that like people will still work on vacation or they defer vacation because they need to do work.
Yeah.
Like I agree with that. Like I think there are times when you do have to be available, and there's situations where even though you've planned it as well as possible, like you might have to do something or something comes up and interferes.
Yep.
Like that makes sense to me. I fortunately had a co-founder who was working his ass off and who could fill in the gaps for me while I was away. You were even courteous enough to not tell me about the shit storms that were happening because there were just constant things happening while till I came back, which was great.
Yeah.
You know, so I get like an email because I would check my emails usually at night. So I worked every day of my vacation by that metric.
Yeah, you were doing like
I would check my email every night.
Yeah.
Okay. And I would, but I would let the emails go all day. I would turn off my notifications on my phone.
Yeah.
So as I didn't want to see them. And at the end of the day, I would I look at them and go, okay, is anything on fire? What happened here?
Yeah.
And every once in a while I get a real nasty one. I'd be like, I'd call you because I'd be like, whoa, geez, what happened with this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, that's a best practice. If you're a founder and you're on vacation and you're in that situation, you do need to kind of be somewhat connected. But what you do is you time box it. You say 1 hour each day, I'm going to check my emails, check my Slack messages, whatever, and then I'm shutting it off. And, really at that point too, you're not really even answering everything. You're just basically like crisis identifying. Is there a crisis?
I'll deal with this later. Yeah, I use the snooze feature a lot now in G Suite.
Oh yeah,
which is really good. I didn't actually use it back then, but I wish I had because I would have just like snoozed this to when
I
I'm back.
They had it back then. I feel like that's kind of new.
But I think like I have a lot of thoughts on this. If you want me to weigh in on what other impacts here.
Yeah.
So like. So that data doesn't terribly surprise me.
Okay.
That a lot of people like defer vacation or don't work on their like can't struggle with getting away.
Yeah.
I think it says a bunch of things about your company though. So on the one hand, it's like it's passion. Okay.
Yep.
But I think this is the grit fallacy kind of like hitting us in the face. There is an expectation that you must work like this to have a startup be successful. And that is wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to work hard. Yes, you want to move the business forward, but think about like Jess Chan with like Long Play. Think about like a lot of these companies that we interviewed in past seasons. The people were like, look, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You're running at a good pace.
Yeah.
I listened to the Friends of Lenny podcast, which is really interesting. Lenny's cool, very down to earth dude. And he interviewed the CEO, co-founder of Anthropic, the big AI company. And that guy even talks about how like it's a marathon. And this is like number 2 in AI. Like this is about as big as it gets, it's about as hot as it gets right now. Selling like hotcakes. Okay. That to me was really interesting that even he understood this. So there's a risk to pushing yourself. And there's also a cost. There's a cost to pushing yourself this hard.
Yeah.
Aside from having shittier vacations or no vacations, there's a cost to your family, cost to your friendships. There's social costs, health costs. Graham, you were just talking about that a minute ago. It's the real deal. Like, so I think that what is overlooked in this, or what is the assumption is that if I work harder at this, it's more likely to be successful, and that includes accepting a certain level of burnout. And I don't know if that's true. I think that's something. I can't definitively say that's not true, but I can imagine that. I know that burnout is bad.
Yeah.
I actually think that if you make yourself more likely to burn out, I think your startup's more likely to fail.
Yeah.
By the same rationale that you think you have to work super hard on it.
Yeah. And
the same line of thought gets you there.
Even if you don't like burn out, I think the thing that gets overlooked here is that when you're working a lot of hours, your creativity is gone. You are just grinding, right? And I think the vacations and just slowing the pace and being more like a marathon instead of a sprint brings back the creativity. And the creativity is the way that you find the new system that you can implement to make yourself more efficient and scale your business more effectively and those types of things. And I think there were times that I'm definitely guilty of this, that I worked too hard and couldn't see the forest for the trees. I love that saying because it's kind of like, you're so in the day-to-day of the business. You can't step back and see, hey, how can I actually make this better longer term? How can I automate, eliminate, or delegate? And you just forget about it. You just
keep doing what you're doing.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
I like how I built this. Another great podcast with lots of interesting founders. But what's fascinating is most of the time in those episodes, pick any startup, any industry.
Yeah.
The founders usually end up being done by year 8 to 10, somewhere in there. Why? They're exhausted.
Yeah.
I think they also want to get, their payday. That's what they were working for.
Yeah.
But there's so many different costs to this. The other thing I want to, okay, let's shift gears for a little bit here.
Yeah.
What does it say to your employees if you never have vacation? Right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that this says a lot. So on the one hand, it says, this is my expectation. This is how I work. I expect you to do the same. Unless you explicitly tell them otherwise, which you did.
Which we did.
Which
yeah.
I don't know how I feel about all the time.
Yeah.
The second thing is, so that was basically on, this is my expectation for your workload or what I think you ought to do. But I think there's also a fundamental, like, I don't trust you.
Yeah.
And I think
you know
that's
what,
really
though?
dangerous.
We explicitly told our staff to like get out of the office at 5. Okay.
And I think that was great.
We were not setting an expectation.
Well, we could have done both. Like, so you could say, we respect your personal time so much. And we did that. We were like, stop working at 5 o'clock. I would go around to people's desks. I would close laptop lids. Yeah. I would say, get out of here. I'd call people on Zoom if they were still on Zoom, be like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
When we were doing the pandemic.
Yeah.
But then like, I think that was good. But at the same time, I think you say there's no such thing as a free lunch. So what's the other side of this? At that time, it was, we expect you to work really hard and believe in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that still remains true. But in addition, it should also have been, and if you're in customer service or if you're in software development, you will have an escalated support responsibility.
Yeah.
I don't think that would have been a reach.
Yeah.
And we had a good culture. People would have done it.
Yeah.
You know, I think there was just a lot of, so I worry that it also sends a message to employees that I don't trust you.
Yeah.
And that's a really big negative message to send. Once you start losing trust or violating the trust of your employees, it's almost impossible to get it back.
Okay.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I know you're thinking about your next thought, but I think that's another thing that you might take for granted if you don't feel.
You know what I'm thinking about is how, knowing all this stuff, I would still struggle with it. I would still struggle with like walking out and taking a vacation.
Every founder listening to this will struggle with these concepts.
Yeah.
It's real. We're all control freaks.
Yeah.
And it's hard to let go control because having the control that you have now, or perhaps not taking vacations, in your mind, you have equated with your current level of success.
Right.
So you were like, I just don't want to blow this. That's a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
There's so much fear as an entrepreneur.
So let's leave the listeners with some best practices on vacations for founders. And I've put together some that I've researched and I like them. And I'm going to put an asterisk next to all this, is that I would struggle doing almost all this stuff.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Sweet.
You would not as much. I think you would struggle a bit with it, but not as much.
All right.
So, all right. So first one, I want to kick out the best practice. I want to get your comments on it. So the first one is, you should have a minimum vacation recommendation or minimum vacation
for
policy
founders.
For founders. Okay. So you need to say, not only do you have 4 weeks of vacation, but you must take 2 weeks, 3 weeks of those 4 weeks.
Agreed.
Like, you are forced to take them.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that would force you to accept that you won't be in the office or won't be available, and force you to challenge the issues that you have that you would normally address yourself.
Yeah.
It forces you to make systems.
Yeah.
It forces you to risk mitigate effectively.
So the next best practice, I think, when we talked about this, is kind of like that strategic approach to your time off. So it is difficult to fully disconnect, but time boxing a 1 hour or half an hour a day to look for fires in your inbox or in your Slack messages is a good way of doing it.
Okay.
Where you can maintain a little bit of a connection, but in your mind, hey, maybe you do it at, I would do it in the morning so I could get through it. I wouldn't do it at night because then I wouldn't sleep. So
yeah, fair.
Say you get up in the morning at 7 o'clock.
Time zone you're in too, though, right?
7:30 to 8 o'clock, I'm going to check for fires. Then I can deal with any that morning, so people are getting answers early, and then turn it off.
It so depends on where you are in the world.
Yeah.
Just before you get to the next point, and it really, really matters. If you're in Hawaii versus you're in Europe, then the timing of when those emails comes in and when fires are happening is different. So I don't know. But yeah, I agree that there should be some sort of practice there around managing that sort of thing. The other thing I just want to say too, when I was away on vacation, if I didn't check my emails, I'd have a little freak out.
Yeah.
Because your identity's tied to it, and a lot of your wealth, your net worth is tied to it. It's like if you were checking like a huge investment.
Yeah.
And you're just going up and down throughout the day.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of one of those things where like you kind of need to know.
Yeah.
I think that's healthy.
Yeah. I think so third best practice. There are some benefits to you being gone, in that you can use it as an opportunity to have some of your key employees step up.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And empower them to fill your shoes for a little while and see how it goes. I think that's actually, I wouldn't have thought of that. I think that's a really interesting idea that you can do that.
Yeah. And I think you have some guardrails on that.
Yeah.
But I think, that's a great idea.
Okay.
I think, and then people, you know what? Here's the other thing is your employees would be excited to have that.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
So I found a stat. I want to leave
your
this
senior
podcast
employees.
with a stat, and I want to get your.
Does it bias the entire conversation?
No. I want to just put it out there and see what you say. Okay.
All right, hit me.
So we talked a bit about burnout and things like that, and they say that for the average recovery time for a founder who is like considered like burnt out, how long do you think they have to go without working before they're kind of like emotionally back to normal?
6 months.
2 years.
Oh, wow. So think of that consequence. So this is the thing, like the conversation of, I can't let this thing fail, so I have to work really hard.
Yeah.
But if you work really hard, it fails because you're not there.
Yeah.
They're tied together.
Yeah.
Like this is the thing that people don't make that connection.
Yeah.
This is why grit is a fallacy. You can't grit your way to an exit because you'll actually burn out before you get there and it'll fail.
Yeah.
It actually makes you closer to failure.
Yeah. And it's weird. I listened to some podcasts where they talk about like dopamine and how your brain works and your neural pathways, how they get worn and things like that.
Yeah.
And I would totally agree that I feel like we've been done for a little over 2 years. And I'd say I'm starting to get back to normal, like on that sort of stuff. I'm starting to feel kind of like the tension release, you know, whereas I feel like go back a year, I think I was still very tense, but I think I'm kind of getting there. So I actually think that stat is quite accurate, that you probably need an average of 2 years to sort of like mentally reset after you've like, really left it all on the field.
So I guess then that sort
get
of
yourself back into one piece.
that leads to the question though, like, do you feel more creative now? Do you feel more in control?
I think I'm getting there, but not quite 100% yet.
How does that make you feel?
Tell me about your feelings. Oh, don't make me talk about my feelings.
That's cool. That's an interesting topic. I think you're doing your company and yourself a service by going on vacation. And it's super counterintuitive because it forces you to do all this stuff, build better systems, risk mitigate, makes you more creative, gives your employees a chance to step up. Take a vacation for the betterment of your company.
The creativity, but I think you also really need to avoid the burnout.
Yeah.
And just that little release valve of a vacation every few months to kind of recenter yourself, do it strategically, follow best practices, all that sort of stuff. It doesn't have to be like a completely you're gone on a, deserted island on a beach with no connectivity. Like you can do some strategic things to make sure you're not completely gone, but do it so that you can bring back that creativity and avoid the burnout that you're potentially going to have with your startup.
Burnout is failure. I think a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Cool. Don't burn out. See you next week.
Start it up. Let's get it rolling. Big ideas, money folding. Hustle smart, dream so wild. Turn that grind into a joyride.